Mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Digitally Transformed Economy.
Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy 6th and 27th of January 2023 starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023 starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes
yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Douglas Moniki from the Capital Markets Authority, where I'm in charge of networks and security and infrastructure. I'm representing our Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Wycliffe Shamia, and basically CMA is a regulator. We are in charge of regulating the capital markets industry here in Kenya, specifically ensuring that there's an orderly capital markets. We also do license our market intermediaries, and we are also in the business of investor awareness and education to make sure that the Kenyan public is aware of some of the capital markets products and services that they can be able to invest in. We also do market surveillance and investor protection to make sure that investors' money is protected. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm Engineer Karani Edward, representing the CEO Micro and Small Enterprise Authority. I'm in charge of infrastructure development, technology, and innovation at Micro and Small Enterprise Authority. As an authority, we are a creation of an Act of Parliament, and our mandate is to develop, regulate, and promote micro and small enterprises across the country. I'm excited to be here on this topic, to discuss about this topic.
Thank you so much. Yes, we are going to go to the next panelist.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Frank Amolo. I'm here to represent my CEO, Kenya National Federation of Jokali Associations, Mr. Richard Muteti. I work with the Federation as the head of policy and resource mobilization. At Kenya National Federation of Jokali Associations, we represent the interest of 1,000 Jokali associations all over the country. And these are basically the people in the informal sector, basically artisans and the small-scale manufacturers in the sectors of woodwork, metalwork, beekeeping, textile, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, just to name a few. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In case there's a panelist representing Patrick Nyangweso from the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, or Professor Nakioni from Dedan Kimathi University, feel free to join us. But in the meantime, we can start. So just to set expectations of this panel, so MSMEs so micro, small, and medium enterprises contribute to economic growth in Kenya by providing employment opportunities, increasing productivity, and promoting innovation. They also help to diversify the economy and reduce dependencies on a few large industries. Additionally, MSMEs often serve as a source of goods and services for large companies and the government, helping to spur economic activity. Furthermore, MSMEs also provide and promote entrepreneurship, which can lead to the creation of new businesses and the development of new products and services. MSMEs in Kenya can leverage personal data to contribute to economic growth in several ways. One, targeted marketing. By collecting and analyzing personal data, MSMEs can better understand their customers' needs and preferences and develop targeted marketing campaigns to reach the right people at the right time. Personalized products or services, this is the second. MSMEs can use personal data to create personalized products and services that better meet the needs of their customers. Third, MSMEs can use personal data to improve their customer service, for example, by providing personalized support or by addressing customer complaints more efficiently. Business intelligence, this is the fourth. MSMEs can use personal data to gain insights into customer behavior and preferences, allowing them to make more informed business decisions and stay ahead of their competitors. Lastly, data-driven decision-making. By collecting, analyzing, and using data for decision-making, MSMEs can make more informed decisions and optimize their operations, which can help them to grow their businesses. It's important for MSMEs to ensure that personal data they collect is used in a responsible and compliant manner, and that their customers' privacy rights are respected and protected. From a government perspective, one way to support MSMEs is in leveraging personal data to grow the economy while being compliant with data protection laws is to provide clear and up-to-date guidelines on data protection regulations. This can help to include information on how to obtain consent from individuals for the collection and use of their personal data, as well as guidelines on how to securely store and process personal data. Additionally, the government can provide resources and support to MSMEs to help them comply with data protection laws, such as training programs and access to legal experts. The government can also set up a regulatory body to oversee MSMEs and ensure that they are operating within the legal framework for personal data protection. So I'm going to start on my far left. In what ways can the government support MSMEs to leverage personal data to grow the economy while being compliant with personal data protection laws?
Thank you. I think one of the ways the government can support MSMEs to leverage on personal data to grow the economy is by ensuring there is funding or grants so that these MSMEs can invest in the relevant technology or infrastructure to be able to conduct data management and security to boost their compliance with the data protection laws. And there are various avenues that this is available. This could be through the Youth Fund, the Uwezo Fund, the Youth Enterprise and Development Fund. Perhaps this can be tweaked to support our MSMEs to be able to get that kind of funding to invest in this kind of technology. Maybe to the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, we could have a data protection officer specifically for MSMEs to act as a single point of contact to provide the requisite guidance and advice and support in navigating the data protection laws. And of course, this would ensure that MSMEs don't have to go through various channels to get this kind of information. If that could happen, that would really be great for our MSMEs. Maybe finally, if we could have a national data exchange program to help MSMEs be able to share and access personal data in a secure and compliant manner to ensure that this data sharing is done within the confines of the law. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Engineer.
Thank you, Ephraim. One is, I would say, creating an environment where MSMEs can benefit, not only comply, but also benefit, get to the next level of benefiting from this data. First, I would want to separate the capacities of a micro enterprise is very different from a medium or a small enterprise. A micro enterprise, probably just creating 5 jobs, might struggle having a data compliance officer in the organization. So might be a small enterprise. So how do we, as government, look at it from a point of we want to be facilitative in an environment where the micro enterprise or a small enterprise is struggling with a lot of compliance issues, not only in terms of tax, in terms of now data and so many other compliance issues. So what I would look at it is from an aggregated point of view. How can they first get to know? Because the awareness level around data protection in the ecosystem across the micros and the small enterprises is very low. So they might get slapped with a penalty and they were not even aware. So the first step I would say is creating adequate awareness, creating platforms that they can be able to access this information, and accessing the enterprises in a reliable and in a way that they can easily. Remember, a micro enterprise might not be able to spend a whole day here listening about, because they are handling so many other issues back. So how do we ensure that we are not disrupting their day-to-day activities, but they still are able to access this information? And one of the ways is providing this information through digital platforms, one. And then ensuring that, as the data commissioner had mentioned, we have a data sharing code that provides the hierarchy with the industry organization like the Jua Kali Federation and other associations. We have an office of registrar of MSCs as within the authority, and this office has data which can help and provide insights on how best who needs what data. So we provide these data sharing codes in a way that it's within the confines of the law, one, and secondly, they are operating, it's giving them insights to make their businesses better. It's not just personal data, it's insights, what can make their businesses thrive. That's what an MSC is looking for. And as an authority, we look at providing this capacity, because capacity, value, and the entry point of a micro enterprise, the entry point of a small enterprise varies. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, yes, Daktari, the same question.
Okay, thanks so much for the question. As a representative of an informal sector, one of the things that becomes very important for me is for the government to provide clear and up-to-date guidelines on a regular basis. Because we come from the informal one, we are also known to be people who are probably not gone to school, people who have been chased away from other jobs, people who don't have jobs. So one of the main things will be to provide a clear and an up-to-date information on these data protection laws. And one thing that will be so important in this is training for business people, the SMEs. Regular trainings, what regular trainings will do is that it will help these business people to be able to know these laws on a regular basis. And as they practice, they'll be able to capture these on their mind and be able to help them into the future. The other thing that the government can do is to be able to give us really a department that is so focused on this, so that anytime that we have something to do with the regulation, then we can contact these people, and these mostly will be the legal experts. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Daktari. So I'll go to the next question, which we'll just handle in the same order from my far right. So, how can MSMEs use customer data to improve their marketing and sales strategies?
I think it's important for us to appreciate the way MSMEs operate. And most of them, you find that in Kenya, they are informal. So if they are going to leverage on customer data to improve their marketing and sales strategies, we need to ask ourselves, how do they even store their data? If it's a micro enterprise with less than 10 employees, do they even have management information system where they use to capture and store customer data. Perhaps not. You will find that most of them leverage on social media platforms or free platforms that are available on the internet to store their data. Some of them just maintain an Excel sheet of their customer data. So it's a bit of a challenge because data is a very valuable commodity for any organization and enterprise and entity. And therefore, it is possible for these MSMEs to be able to leverage on this data that they have. And I think there would be a lot of capacity building towards them for them to be able to leverage on some of the available tools they can use to make sure that they can use that customer data they have, one, for personalized marketing or targeted marketing so that they can focus their advertisement and marketing efforts to effectively ensure that there is higher revenue, there is higher conversion rates, and they also have some level of competitive advantage. They can also utilize the same data for diversifying their products and services. And the same can also be leveraged to improve customer service by having a mechanism of collecting complaints or responses from the customers or the customer segments that they focus on. But now the challenge goes back to what I'd said earlier. How do they store this data? Do they have the capability or the capacity to conduct some basic form of analysis to get correlation or patterns or trends with respect to the products that they are bringing to the market or the services that they are offering? So data in itself is very valuable. Maybe now the challenge would be how we can, or how they can be enabled to utilize, some of the platforms are available. We have some of them is like Google Analytics, which they can leverage on to without necessarily spending so much. Because I echo the sentiments of my colleague. Most of these people is just someone who is running a small business along the highway with about 5 employees. Do they have the time to invest in a system that will help them capture and store and conduct some level of analysis on the customer data that they have to be able to even make projections or even forecasting or even make decisions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Data is a gold of the future. The value of data grows with time. The much data you collect, the more insights you can be able to make in the future. Fortunately, the MSMEs in Kenya are already using some of these data to make decisions. Now, how do we make it more effective? And it's already happening. There are quite a number of digital platforms in agri-tech, in e-hailing, that is technology-based taxis, and they're using data to inform their operators or the MSCs that are operating within their platforms to influence certain decisions. So, for example, I'm a farmer. I'm seeing a platform. I'm in a platform where I'm seeing a heat map where there is high demand for the product I'm selling. If I'm a driver, I'm seeing a heat map. The west side of Nairobi, there are very many highballs or very many requests coming from customers. So as a business person, I'll tend to make a decision to go towards where the demand is. I'll tend to make a decision towards where the type of product that is highly demanded. So the question is, how do we accelerate these data insights or these data points to make more informed decisions to the sector? And we need many players. We need to work together with many players, people who can look at the personal data. So I have an application. I'm making a request for, let's say, fresh vegetables. How does that information translate to the market, the person in the mama mboga? How can that information be relayed to the mama mboga without necessarily presenting a lot of information? So it's probably this type of vegetable is the most frequently requested. yeah, depending on the data and the region that they're operating. How can we have as many, if it's, let's say, in micro manufacturing, someone is a welder, they are operating, let's say, in the building and construction ecosystem, they can have insights around the last 1 month or the last 1 week, there has been orders of this particular type or design, yeah? Now, looking at the available platforms that we have, there are quite a number. It's only that we don't have an end-to-end solution. It's just connecting the dots and ensuring that, for example, if there's X number of, let's say, clicks on a certain products on Facebook, how would that information translate to valuable information to an MSC who is producing that, that product? And how can it be helpful to someone else so that we don't have this kind of, you have many people producing the same thing, but it's not a demand-driven decision. It's purely you see someone doing something, then you copy. So what the future should look like for me is we have as many aggregators and people providing platforms that can offer insightful data to the MSCs. And it can be just software as a service. It's just a subscription-based something. Something you log in, you're in this sector, you can be able to get insights, what is in high demand, where is it in high demand, where can I access X type of product, where can I even access my supplies? Because again, there's a lot of parity in terms of how the MSC sector is able to access even their raw materials. What a certain raw materials is being sold in industrial area is very different from how it's being sold somewhere else. So how can these MSC be able to access this information to make very, I would say, optimal decisions to enhance their productivity? Because at the end of the day, the best way to support the sector is to ensure that the decisions they're making on a daily basis are towards growing their productivity, hence increasing their margins and their income.
Thank you very much. Demand-driven products and services.
Just to add on what my colleague from SEA said, we are living in a knowledge economy, and knowledge is right now the gold that we have. Most of the data that comes about or that the SMEs are able to come across are data that come in form of reports. So you analyze the reports, and probably the SMEs advised on what, because some of them are very technical, so the SMEs advised on what the data says. Data is a very important thing, and the capture is also of great benefit to the SMEs that we have around. What they can use, what the SMEs can benefit from this customer data is, one is that they're able to assess the business intelligence. They are able to know how their products are doing in the market. They're also able to look at how the competitor products are doing in the market. With these comparisons, they can clearly see if the competitors are doing better than them, if they are the same level, or if they are doing better than the competitors. In all the three scenarios, the strategy that the entrepreneur will apply will depend on the case scenario. If you're not doing better than your competitor, it means that probably the other product will be superior, or their marketing strategy is superior, or their pricing is superior. So you'll be able to adjust these models to fit yourself. You'll either adopt new marketing strategies, new sales, or you'll be able to see how to put your resources in place to be able to produce at a lower cost. The other thing that is important is with this data, you can be able to see if you're gaining clients or if you're losing clients. If you're gaining clients, it basically means that you're doing something good, but you can still be able to do something better using the strategies that you have. If you're not doing better in that you're losing customers, then you just need to improve on your customer service. And that boils down to having a new customer service strategy and being able to train your staff and all the people that are involved in along the value chain. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're going to go to the next question. I noticed the other questions which I intended to ask, which we've retouched on a bit. So I'll see how to reorganize this order of questions. But the next question is, how can MSMEs use employee data to improve their human resources and management practices?
Thank you. When it comes to human resource management, you're looking at recruitment, retention, and succession planning. And these MSMEs, of course, they are using human capital to drive their revenues and to drive their businesses. So one of the ways MSMEs can leverage on this human resource information is to be able to help them to identify patterns or trends in employee performance. It could be certain employees have, high sales targets and they're able to meet them on time. And this can help in making strategic decisions to support training, upskilling, and even development and career progression. They can also use the same information for capacity building, where you identify a certain employee or has the capacity or capability to be able to drive the business forward. And with that kind of insight, then you can be able to, they can be able to offer relevant and requisite training to make sure that there's capacity building so that there's retention. Because sometimes you find that the best employees are the ones that leave, and this cuts across the board, not necessarily on MSMEs. So having the ability to be able to determine high-performing individuals within an entity, and also being in a position to create the relevant succession planning, so that even in the event there's high-skilled staff turnover, then there's that succession planning to make sure that the businesses do not really, or these MSMEs do not suffer, revenue shortfalls because, someone who was really good at what they were doing has left the enterprise. The same employee data can be leveraged on to create targeted, employee wellness programs to make sure that though they are small in their nature, they are also able to, attend to and meet the wellness needs of the employees that they have. So earlier, this is data, this personal data, this human resource data. It's valuable. Once you are able to leverage on it to get insights, then these MSMEs can be able to make the relevant decision to make sure that there's right recruitment, there's upskilling of the human capital that they have, there's succession planning, and also there's a retention to make sure that the bottom lines are well taken care of and that there's no shocks that they experience as a result of someone who was doing very well in that enterprise exiting and probably going to startup, arrival, going to a competitor. Thank you.
For me, the MSMEs first face the first biggest challenge, which is you're competing for a resource, which you're competing with your big boys, with the big boys. And even in the tech space, it happened in Kenya, where the big boys came and quite took off the best talents in the ecosystem. So how does an MSME attract, retain the best talent, and keep that best talent at the best of their performance. In terms of productivity, they're keeping them at their best. Now, how can the human resource team look at it from you're responsible for the wellness and the happiness? You look at what PwC had published around the future of work, what a certain generation of people expect in terms of commitment, for them to commit to work is very different from a different generation. So how can this data be used to make very optimal programs for MSMEs? So for example, you're running a startup and you are competing with the big boys for the same talent. You have an HR policy which is not retaining these people. So the first question is, what is your target top talent? What is their level of productivity who do you want to achieve? What is their profile? Their profile could be their biodata in terms of age, education, and such. So this talent that you want to retain, what are their interests? And that's personal data. How they prefer in terms of working hours, working spaces, dressing codes. Those are some of the things that you can tweak to ensure that you retain these top talents. Now, it's also an opportunity. The flexibility of an MSME is very different from the flexibility in a big corporate. A big corporate has probably to adhere to some international compliance issues that as an MSME you're not necessarily subject to. So you can tweak your HR instrument and your practices within the institution to ensure that you're keeping them excited, you're keeping them committed to the cause. You're actually close to running what I would call a community, as a community of tight team that want to deliver at the end of the day. For a startup or for an MSME, your biggest resource starts with the people. So if you're able to continuously learn, and remember what the interest of someone who was employed 5 years ago is changing after 5 years. Their interest after 10 years will change. So how do you ensure that you're dynamic enough that you're using this personal data of your employees to make changes and to keep them attracted, interested, committed to the drive and to the vision of the institution. So for me, it's a big opportunity for startups to ensure that they're actually able to compete favorably with the big boys and retain them, because there is a lot of flexibility in MSMEs compared to what the compliance levels that the big corporates would need, both at international level and national level.
Thank you very much.
For me, I'll clearly look at it in terms of productivity and adjusting of policies that probably these organizations have within them. One, data comes with a lot of variables. Internally, as an employer, with the data that you have and the reports that you make, you can be able to analyze this based on different roles that the firm has. You will realize that with time, you are able to allocate different resources to different departments based on the productivity that you get from the data that you've collected from the employees. Another thing is that you will also be able to vary your policies depending on the benefits and priorities that you've placed on different departments. You'll find that using your data, you'll find some departments performing better than the others. So most of the organizations have these, they have the reward schemes like the annual bonus. So using data, you'll be able to reward different departments within your organization differently, depending on the amount of input and output that they bring to your organizations. The other thing is that with data, you'll be able to know the efficiency and the effectiveness of a team that you put in place. With data, you can also be able to know if probably you overworking your staff in a different department and underworking some of them, if that's the right word that to use, underworking some of them in different departments. So you can be able to shift them into different units that requires them the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are going to go to the question on how can MSMEs ensure security and privacy of personal data in their possession. How can MSMEs ensure the security and privacy of personal data in their possession?
Thank you. I think that goes back to where do these MSMEs store their data for them to be able to apply the necessary security and protection measures to make sure that this data is actually protected. So you find that some of them have subscribed to software as a service, and therefore this data is not sitting with them, it's sitting with a third party. Maybe one of the requirements or one of the ways they can ensure that that personal data is actually protected is to ensure that whoever this third-party provider of this service subscribes to data protection laws or frameworks that actually stipulate the requirements that are needed to protect that data. A requirement could be to make sure that this provider either has adopted, for example, ISO 27001 for information security, or the National Institute of Standardization and Technology, NIST, in the case for third parties. But for those who actually have control of their data, then one of the ways to ensure that there is privacy and security of this information, then there are levels of control that they can implement to make sure that this security is maintained. One of them could be to make sure that all the employees or all the stakeholders that come into contact to this data, they sign non-disclosure agreements that are binding. The other could be to ensure that they enforce what we call the concept of least privilege, such that the human capital within these MSMEs, that customer data is only accessible to the people who actually require it in the execution of their duties within the confines of the law. Could also make sure that they create backup copies of this customer data that they have, such that in the event there is a data breach, or in the there is not necessarily a data breach, in the event there is a loss of integrity or there is corruption, then this can be restored back without necessarily losing everything. They could also employ encryption and probably if you're talking about a micro enterprise that may not have the technical know-how of doing this, even on a Windows computer, you can enable encryption on your hard drive, or you can secure this information using passwords to make sure that even if it were to fall in the wrong hands, then that information is not easily accessible. But perhaps going back to our discussion today about data protection, I think a lot of awareness needs to go into how these MSMEs need to handle and deal with personal data.
For me, it starts with the profile of the enterprise. So a normal micro enterprise in the service sector is your roadside garage, the restaurant that you go to, the lab that you attend, or a clinic with 3-4 staff. In the service industry, it could be a saloon that you attend to, the kinyozi that you go to. All these are opportunities for data, your data, personal data, and for even that matter, even biometric data getting to some. It's an opportunity for it getting to a third party. For a small enterprise, it could be that small school where you take your child. It could be that hospital. It could be a small manufacturing entity with 20 or so staff. We interact with these MSMEs on a daily basis. We walk into a building, we are required to register our names, we leave our names. We walk into a hotel, some town back in the village, you ask for your ID, they photocopy. You walk into a tuck shop, you're photocopying something, you leave your documents to be photocopied. That's an opportunity for that information to be left there. Someone shared around Huduma centers how the cyber cafes, there's a lot of someone, after you've given your documents to be photocopied, someone is left or one was damaged, it's left anyhowly. So the case-by-case data protection and privacy would be different. So for example, you've walked into a roadside garage, your documents are inside your car, someone takes a photo of your ID or your documents. How does the owner of the garage get aware of that? How does the security man who is employed by a security firm and the hospital or the school where you go to, you've given your details, how does that hospital ensure? Because yes, you gave the information at the premises of that hospital, that hotel, that building, whichever it is, but actually it was not their employee. It was a security company, and that security company keeps on, has a very high turnover of security guards. Yeah? How does even the owner of the security company ensure that the information, the black book that we always see on buildings, is that information is secure? So I think what we need is first a paradigm shift. The opportunities for even your genetic information being taken by a barber are high. Yeah? But do you ask your barber whether, or your salonist whether you have a privacy policy? You don't. You don't, when you walk into a building, you don't ask the security guy whether they have a data protection officer or they have a policy or a code or a manual or something. You don't. So the first step would be a paradigm shift on how we think about us as the data subjects, how we share this data, one, and all the data handlers and processors for that matter are also aware that this is what the law says. Yeah? If you have, for example, if you have installed a CCTV camera that has visual recognition abilities, what are you supposed to comply with? What documentation is required? We are not complying. You walk into any building, it has CCTV with visual recognition. They take your photo. How much can that photo be used to fake your identity? So the paradigm shift, I would say it's three-pronged. As the data subject, we need to be aware when we are giving out our data, our personal data, are we cognizant of the harm that it can cause? Yeah? We have someone, you want to open a business, you have someone tells you, give me your eCitizen account details, I log in, I transact for you, and then, because some of these information, the way it's required by the data processor or the handler, you might not, as a layman, be able to enter all the details to register a company on your eCitizen. But now, you've given that details to a cyber person or a lawyer to do that. That's, you as a data subject, you've provided, willingly provided that information. Now, on the MSME side, what shift needs to happen? So if you're getting into supply contracts, let's say with service providers, the security company, how do we have standard documentation to ensure that there is a data protection agreement with your service providers? Even government entities, that you've provided, you've given a contract to a security company, at the gate they collect a lot of private data. How sure are you that that information is not getting to third parties? Yeah? So I think what we need to change is first, as the data subject, think about it when you're giving it. Secondly, when you're engaging third parties, MSMEs need to be very careful and cautious of how much they are able and what controls they are putting in place to ensure that it does not come back as a penalty.
Thank you so much.
Just to sum up on what my colleagues have talked about, the right thing should be for an organization, an SME, to ensure that only the right data gets to an employee who is using it for purposes that is meant to improve his work. So basically, an SME needs to have proper controls to ensure that the right data gets to the right employee, and the data is basically for use in his line of work.
Thank you so much. I'm going to open just 2 questions before we allow the panelists to give closing statements. The closing statements will be 30 seconds each. 2 questions from the audience. Any question? I don't want to leave, to close without, yes. We can pick one from this side and another from this direction. Is there a mic?
Yes, I'm Derek. My question come here. How can SME regulate or put a policy, and how to put framework that will promote and protect data?
Thank you. Another question? Yes, there's a lady there with a question. And then, yeah.
Hi, everyone. So my question is a personal one, and I've filed with ODPC. So my question is with the banking sector and fintechs. There's a close relationship there. I bank with you. You have my details. So how protected am I in giving my details to this bank that in turn goes and uses my personal details to a third-party kind of situation?
Thank you so much. The gentleman here, yes. But just regarding that question, given you filed with the ODPC, there's a rule in law called sub judice. You can't discuss an ongoing matter that is being determined. So I would excuse the panelists from answering that question specifically.
Mine is a simple question. Is this conference about data privacy or data protection? We must be very careful on definitions. When we talk about data, I believe we want to be talking about something from the same source. What is data? Somebody, I believe, enlighten us on what data is. And add on, how does it relate to information? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I like philosophical questions. What is data and how does it relate to information? Yes, we can start from my far right, answering any question that you have selected, and as you give your closing remarks. Realizing the one between you and lunch.
My apologies, I didn't quite get his question, so I'm going to try and attempt my senior, the question that he asked concerning data and information. And I think in very simple terms, data is simply raw facts. And, but of course, now we have big data, where you have a large collection of data sets. So with data, you can now mine data to get information, insights, correlation, patterns, which now you can use to either make a decision or, ideally for strategic decision making. So data in itself can be very raw. It can be as simple as zeros and ones. But now, when you have a collection of data now that becomes information. Now, once you start building correlations and deriving insight, from it. And I'm sorry, he was quite soft, so maybe I might have missed some of the parts of his question. Thank you.
Closing. And
I think there's a mic next to. I don't know that you can pass him the mic so that we get to hear.
What is data? And if you are reading from my same source, Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English, data is unprocessed information.
True.
It's true. Agree.
Yes, I say draw facts. Yes, we are correct.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yes.
Now, the other one which confused me is we are talking about data privacy. Is privacy the same thing as protection? Because in our act, it is the Data Protection Act, not privacy.
Thank you. I think that we're talking about semantics, and that one we'll invite someone from the ODPC to just make it clear for us from an official point of view. But to attempt to answer your question, when it comes to data protection, is to ensure that there are enough security mechanism and safeguards to ensure that the personal data that an entity, an enterprise is holding is free from external interference, unauthorized access, and leakage. When it comes now to data privacy, which is also interlinked with protection, is the prevention of this personal data from being made public to entities that are not authorized to have it. Thank you.
Thank you. I will try to respond to, if I got...
In 1 minute.
In 1 minute. In terms of how can SMEs come up with a policy to promote data protection, I think I will concur with what the Data Commissioner talked about, having a code, having a sharing framework so that it's done within the confines of the law. Talking about it's a data privacy, my understanding is what you're talking about is the data privacy activities culminating to the Data Privacy International Day. But the act talking about protection is when you look at the rights of how the act talks about in terms of rights on personal data, rights to access personal data, rights to restrict processing, right to object to processing, right to rectification, data portability request, and right of erasure, is your personal data should be protected by whoever is trying to process it. So that's the privacy of your personal data should be protected. That's how I would try to interpret it from a very layman's point of view. In conclusion, my closing remarks is data is the gold of today and tomorrow, and the value of data grows with time. So what should we do as an ecosystem to ensure that MSMEs benefit from this data is by ensuring that we are creating an environment, one, where sharing of these insights, not necessarily personal data, but insights driven from personal data can help them make very optimal decisions. Secondly, is helping them in matters of compliance, making it as simple as possible and not necessarily giving them a lot of compliance costs in terms of ensuring that they comply with the regulatory requirement. And finally, is to ensure that both state and non-state actors work together to ensure an efficiency in ensuring the Data Protection Act is complied to. Thank you.
In conclusion, what I will say is that data is very important for SMEs, and the future of startups that are coming up and even the organizations that are thriving depends on data and the information that we receive from these data. So what I would really press on is especially for us in the informal sector, is for the government to help us to be able to get this and to train our members so that we can be able to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming to this session. Sorry we ran out of time. Looking forward to other conversations on the corridors. You can interact with the panelists and the institutions offline and online. All of them have Twitter handles and Facebook, among others. So looking forward to other conversations today and tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Asanteni sana, makofi kwao. I think we've had a fantastic conversation on MSME, and I'm looking forward to the summary. As we allow people to settle in, allow me to read a message from one of the people watching us online. Her name is Esther Mushiri, who is the ED of eMentoring Africa. And she says, following online and looking forward to a great outcome. As a youth-focused organization, I'm keen to see how we can engage with government to give our youth opportunities to digitize government records. This will create employment, skills transfer, and mentorship for better livelihoods. So we have people watching us, and we acknowledge you. Thank you very much for staying with us all along. I think it's important that we clarify there is no lunch break. My sincere apologies for the late start, but I promise you that we'll be done by latest 3:30. So please bear with us. I think the conversations have been very, very rich, and I'm going to invite Ephraim to come and give us a brief summary, just maximum 5 things, and then I'll invite Susan to give us a summary from hers as well. You can do it well seated there. It's okay.
Thank you very much. So, just a minute. So, some of the key takeaways, I'll use certain buzzwords that kept being repeated. Demand-driven products and services. Data being important to ensure that there is demand-driven products and services, that you're not just replicating things because they have happened elsewhere. Second, access to information is important for MSMEs to have this access to information regarding how to comply to the law, how to be aware of the trends. So access to information, that is the support that they need from the government and other stakeholders, and resources to the MSMEs to ensure that they are compliant. Some of them are very small, micro, they don't have the resources to ensure that they have a data protection officer, among others, how to have that. And then the other key takeaway is proper controls. So trying to ensure that MSMEs, despite them being small and nimble, trying to ensure that there's proper controls regarding data flows. And then the other bits, paradigm shift from data subjects, data processors, and data controllers, how we view things, just our mindsets, paradigm shift. Those are the key takeaways.
Thank you very much. A clap for them. I think they did a good job. The next speaker is Susan. Is Susan in the room? Madam Susan? I'm not sure whether that session has come back, but it's okay. We'll have key highlights during the closing session. I think now we are going to go to the final breakout session of the day. Just 45 minutes. I promise not to keep you here for more than 2 hours. So this other session, we are talking about the digital superhighway and creative economy. We are looking at the value of personal data and compliance with the data protection regulatory in growth of the digital and creative economy. Those will remain here. So this is a government perspective, and it will be moderated by Mr. Ali Hussein from the Kenya ICT Action Network. The next session will be, the next panel will be the digital superhighway and creative economy, value of personal data and compliance with the data protection regulatory in growth of the digital and creative economy. We are looking at the infrastructure service providers perspective. This session will be moderated by Mr. Barack Otieno from the Kenya ICT Action Network. It will be in Aberdares. Again, just as we did in the first session, they will assemble there and then they will proceed down. The third panel, this will be the digital superhighway and creative economy, value of personal data and compliance with the data protection regulatory in growth of the digital and creative economy. Platform service providers perspective. Again, this will be moderated by Mr. John Walubengo from the Kenya ICT Action Network. Thank you very much for your continued support. Thank you for your contribution. We really do value your contribution, even on Twitter. Please don't leave. We're just requesting for 45 more minutes because your contribution is truly crucial. And we appreciate it. So please don't leave. Let us proceed to these rooms. The first panel will be left here. This is the government perspective in terms of digital superhighway and the creative economy. The next perspective is the infrastructure service providers perspective. And the third, and I can see Susan is here. So I will invite her to briefly give us key highlights from her session. The next session is the platform service providers perspective meeting in Lenana. So those ones will assemble there. Madam Susan, I'm giving you 1 minute to give us your summary. Let's give her 1 minute to give us the summary from her session. Karibu. Yeah, and let's clap for her as she comes. She's been a great moderator. And then an interesting factor to note, this session was all men. Susan's was all women, so it is fine.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Susan Wanjiko. I'm from GIZ Kenya, where my role is Digital Ecosystem Advisory within the Digital Transformation Center. I promise you I don't sound like this on the regular. I have a flu. My voice is usually much smoother. So I was moderating a panel at the Aberdares Hall on how micro, small, and medium enterprises can leverage on personal data to grow the economy while being compliant to the data protection legal framework. And that's within the the private sector perspective. 5 of the points that we got is that they need to protect personal data, collect only what they need, as SMEs, MSMEs. MSMEs have to register with Data Protection Commission to safeguard them for when there is a breach, analyze data that can help grow their businesses, and also work with consultants to establish procedures and policy, Office of Data Protection, and ensure compliance with the law. And finally, continuous education on compliance to onboard all organizations and institutions. Those were our 5 points. Thank you.
Thank you very much. She did it in under a minute. A clap for her, please. So now we proceed. We proceed to the rooms. If you're in Savo, please remain. If you are looking at the infrastructure service providers perspective, please proceed to Aberdares. If you are focusing on the platform service providers perspective, we meet in Lenana. So I will welcome the panel on the government perspective, which will be left here. Please, it's just 45 minutes, and the bell will ring. I promise you, the bell will ring. So we meet here at exactly 14:50. Mr. Ali Hussein, who is moderating this session. Okay. So yes, so those people focusing on the platform service providers perspective, that's in Lenana. This is Meta Platform Inc. This is Alphabet Inc. This is TikTok. This is Amnesty International. This is Strathmore University. That is in Lenana, down here. Moderated by Mr. John Walubengo. So I think I will invite Mr. Ali Hussein to moderate this next session on the government perspective. Let's move to the front, please. Let's move to the front, please.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme, Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme, Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
Good afternoon, everyone. So let me call my fellow speakers, panelists, to come on stage so that we can kick off. I think you can come closer. Just come closer. Guys, you can come this side. You can come this side. Come closer. So, good afternoon, guys. I hope you've at least had a snack. I know it's afternoon. I don't want people to start dozing off because of hunger pains. So this afternoon, we're going to delve into data privacy and protection as we look at our digital superhighway and the creative economy. And with me today, I have interesting panelists and speakers from various organizations. I will kick off with quick introductions, and I'll start with myself. My name is Ali Hussein Kasim, and today I'm wearing the hat as the chairman of the Kenya ICT Action Network. We are ICT policy and regulatory think tank that covers the Pan-African region. So I'm going to go into quick introductions from my left. I think, guys, you can introduce yourselves, your name, your organization, and what you do in that organization, and a brief opening statement on the question or discussion at hand today, and then we'll go straight into our conversations and discussions. Let's start with my left.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ruth Muthui. I work for the Kenya Film Commission, and I'm the Legal Services Manager.
Welcome, Ruth.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chisano Joachim. I work in the Film Production and Liaison Department at Kenya Film Commission.
Welcome, Chisano.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Terence Bavon Minishi. I'm Manager Regulatory Affairs at Media Council of Kenya.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Paul Kaindo. I'm a Chief Legal Counsel at the Kenya Copyright Board.
Great. So we have organizations here today that operate in that space that we have talked about, mostly government or government-related agencies. Now, I asked you guys for your opening statements as far as this conversation is concerned. So let me maybe just recap what are we discussing today. The digital superhighway and creative economy, and the value of personal data and compliance with the data protection regulatory regulations in growth of the digital and creative economy from a government perspective. So let me kick off with you, sir. In your perspective, in your agency, how are you dealing with this particular issue that has become a key issue today and most likely going forward?
Thank you, Mr. Ali. So at the Kenya Copyright Board, what we deal with is one of the aspects of intellectual property, which is copyright. And as you may know, copyright is one of the key elements of the creative economy. Without copyright, definitely, the creative economy would not, in my view, thrive. So how do we deal with data protection and the role of the digital superhighway? Of course, the way the copyright or copyright works were used traditionally is not the same way that they are being exploited now because of the change in technology and because of the digital expansion brought about by the digital superhighway. The digital superhighway in this case creates what we call the World Wide Web, meaning that it removes the boundaries which limited the use or exploitation of the work. For us, since we do collect data using our systems, because right now we do register copyright through a digital system which we are calling the NRR, National Rights Registry, in which we collect personal data. How do we ensure that that data is properly managed? We are in the process of developing a data policy. It is in an advanced stage. But we always ensure that every data that is actually, or information that is provided in the system is well protected, that it is used for the intended purpose, which is mostly policy development and policy change. So the internet has come actually to help, but at the same time, it has come with its own challenges. But we are dealing with data in a way that ensures that the creative economy is able to grow and develop.
Thank you so much. From a Kenya Film Commission perspective, what are your thoughts on this?
Thank you. For us, it's just to echo the same sentiments as the Copyright Board. What happened is the internet really revolutionized filmmaking, and also from the production process, distribution, we have seen how in the past couple of years it has changed. It has taken a drastic change in terms of with the coming of new technologies. And for us in the Commission, our role has been to develop and support local filmmakers, and part of our programs are to provide opportunities for training of filmmakers in new technologies. And when it comes to the digital superhighway, we have seen when it comes to shooting movies, in the past couple of years, it has changed drastically in the sense that when it comes to traditional filmmaking and how things are done now, it takes a shorter time for you to produce movies. It's much faster, and these are some of the advantages that technology has brought in the industry. And also it has reduced costs of making movies. Filmmakers are able to produce complete projects on time, within budgets, in accordance with their production schedule. So and even the quality of films has changed. So our work as Film Commission is to spearhead and to support filmmakers, whether it's providing training, and we also provide financing. So for us, in terms of collection of personal data, or data in general, our work is basically for us to implement our programs. We are influenced by information data, so it helps in our decision-making processes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Media Council. Maybe just a quick brief on what the mandate of the Media Council is, and then jump quickly into the issue at hand today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ali. So the mandate of the Media Council is actually to set media standards and ensure compliance. We mainly, our act applies to journalists, media enterprises, and media practitioners. So ideally what we do is we set ethical standards for journalists and media enterprises. Now, quickly jumping into the issue of the digital superhighway and our perspective of it, is what we see both advantages and disadvantages of the growth in the digital superhighway vis-a-vis the government stand. The advantage of it is it has increased access. Very many people can now actually access data. The key question that arises is, with this many people who can access data, how are they going to treat that data? We know that there are regulations being put in place so that as there's an increase in the number of people who can access data, even from the media point of view, how are they using this data? We have the DPA, which has created principles which needed to be abided by, and then we have the rights of the data subject. So key for us as a regulator in the media space is, as the digital superhighway continues to grow in the country, how is this space being used? Is the government agencies ready and have the capacity to regulate people who have access to people's personal data? So if I may leave it there, then.
Thank you so much. From a production perspective, and looking at the queries and the questions that we have today, from the days where producing a movie would take months, in some cases years, today you have people who are producing clips, 10-minute, 15-minute clips, within hours or less than an hour, or sometimes going live on YouTube. These sort of dynamics that we have seen today in relation to data protection and privacy, how are you dealing with it? First, I want to hear from sort of how you look at it from a production perspective, and then from a legal perspective. We see lots of conversations today around OTT, that's over the top TV, which is your YouTubes, your videos on Instagram, your TikToks. How is the agency preparing or prepared for this new age, which is not tomorrow or the day after, it's actually happening now?
Thank you for that question. In terms of production of content, new technology has ushered in the aspect of user-generated content, and that goes the entire way in terms of content consumption and distribution. So tied to technology as well as the use of smartphones, we are seeing more in terms of the production equipment. People are moving away from the traditional cameras because we find that most of the smartphones have much more capability than the traditional cameras. So that is a welcome move in terms of disruption of technology in terms of film production. And then if you move into content consumption, we are seeing more preference in terms of short content. We've seen the likes of TikToks, YouTube Reels, and Instagram Reels as well. So us as a commission, we are trying to keep up with the changes that are taking place in the industry, ensuring that we are looking out for any new technology that comes up, so that we now develop production guidelines for the industry, so that we also have a way of protecting the consumers, because the most famous channels of consumption of content are basically online, the OTT platforms. So those firms that are setting shop in Kenya, we're just trying to align them to be alive of the Data Protection Act and also adhere to the production guidelines that favor our stakeholders in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. From a legal perspective, how are you guys managing this VUCA moment? Velocity and all that stuff.
Okay. What we're doing as a commission, because from when it comes to our trainings and our capacity building of filmmakers, we realize there's a demand for knowledge on copyright laws, intellectual property, knowledge on copyright laws, intellectual property. In the past, we have partnered with institutions like Kekobo to sensitize and train them on just basic aspects of protection of copyright. So that is an issue that a lot of creatives, really even aspiring, those who are coming into the industry, for us, we take the position that it actually should be a mandatory training for them. So because right now, like you said, this is an area of distribution they will end up using, for example, online. So they have to know to protect their films. So when it comes to, so for us, since we're not really into enforcement of copyright, I'll leave it to copyright to tell you, but for us, it's all about education, sensitization, and ensuring they understand the different methods of protection, just from our capacity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. I know we have about 10 minutes to go, so I'm going to invite my audience for any questions or comments that you may have. And if you want a particular panelist to answer your question or comment, please, you can address it to that panelist. Do we have mics for the audience? Let's have a mic, please. Why don't you just take it to and stand by so that you can move around for anybody else. Before you speak, introduce yourself and the organization you are here representing, and then I would take maybe 2 or 3 other questions, so you can prepare yourself to raise your hand after my good friend here has spoken.
Hi, thank you, sir. My name is Waizaje. I represent my own small business. It's called Kenya Duka. But my question is not on my behalf. It's actually on the behalf of those people who possibly cannot access this kind of a platform. And I'd asked it in one of the other panels, and I just wanted to hear the feedback. So it's to any one of you. The question simply is, 80 or 90% of the Kenyan population doesn't have access to a smartphone, let alone a tablet or a desktop or any of these. So what is each of your organizations trying to do to make that easily accessible, so the person on the street who may not have what anyone in this room probably has, which is a smartphone, which is really now the new computer, the new laptop, how can he or she get to you and have this access to this information and have an equal playing opportunity to have the opportunity to do anyone else in this room is having. So my example or suggestion was, just like we have the public bathrooms, we should have public portals where anyone can walk in that is government supported, and you can actually have access to a desktop or a laptop or a tablet or a smartphone, and you can be guided by an adult social worker or somebody in that space, and you're able now to access the same information and guided, so we don't leave behind the majority of the people. Thank you.
That's an interesting question. So whoever wants to answer that question can prepare, but I'll take 1 or 2 more questions or comments and then come back to my panelists.
My name is Catherine Mohatia. I wear the banner of Association of Public Broadcasters. I'm also a media trainer. We cannot wish away the issue of citizen journalism. And my question, or rather my comment, I would want to get views from the panelists on the place of citizen journalists in this digital era with regards to data protection. Thank you.
Okay, maybe you may want to be a little bit more specific with your question with regards to data protection in terms of them being protected or in terms of other people being protected?
Of course, it's in terms of other people being protected.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Citizen journalism, aka bloggers? No? Would bloggers come into your paradigm of citizen journalism?
I wouldn't want to place them there because most bloggers are trained journalists.
Really?
Yes.
Most bloggers are trained journalists.
Exactly.
That is interesting. Okay, citizen journalism. Let's keep it there. One last question and then come back to my panelists. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Nikron Kibune. I'm computer security consultant. My question is about the data protection and across the boundary data breach. In case I have my content, or in case I have my creation, and then someone outside Kenya access the information, how are you going to deal with such scenario? Thank you.
Great. All right, so let me recap for my panelists. The first question was not leaving any Kenyan behind when it comes to access to the internet. The second question was on data protection with regards to citizen journalism. And the third question is how do we protect Kenyans with their information and their creations in regards to breaches from outside the country? Did I get that right? All right, who wants to go first? And to go first? Which one do you want to answer?
I have a comment on each.
You have a comment on each?
Yes.
Go for it.
All right. In regards to the first issue of 80% not having access to smartphone or tablets, I'll answer you from the MCK standpoint. One, the MCK does not, as much as we'd like, cannot assist everyone generally, but we assist journalists and media practitioners. So what we do is we have hubs across the country so that those without smartphones and tablets and are engaging in the practice of journalism can go to such hubs and use the facilities that are there. They have a computer there, they have a printer there, so that they can do their stories there and send them to the newsroom. So unfortunately, we cannot assist everyone, but that's what we do for journalists and media practitioners. In regards to citizen journalism in the digital era, what I can say about that is the reality of the situation is the growth in the digital space has actually gone faster than the growth in legislation, which is actually a good thing when legislation is playing catch-up, because it's always good when innovation is before legislation. Now, the good thing about it is we realize that what we need to regulate, even as the Media Council, is we need to regulate the practice of journalism. So that we'll say, if you are engaging in the practice of journalism and we have defined it, whether you are a citizen or not, then there are these minimum standards that need to be adhered to. Because we have realized, with the kind of gadgets we have, the smartphones and all that, even right now, if an accident was to happen, you'll find that maybe even the people taking the video are not the traditional newsrooms. We have, as people are saying, people are innovative and creating videos very fast, so that even newsrooms are buying from these citizen journalists. So what we are doing is, we have a category now called media practitioners, where people who are not your traditional journalists can come for accreditation. They get trained and they get to know the basics of media ethics. So that's actually just to address the issue of citizen journalism. It's something that the regulator is playing catch up. We are reviewing our laws, we are reviewing our guidelines, so that to address that issue, which we have picked up, that currently not your traditional journalists will be doing journalism. In regards to data breaches outside Kenya, again, this is just what I'll say we do for journalists and media practitioners. We actually offer trainings for them in regards to intellectual property rights. In the intellectual property rights go beyond borders. So once, I believe the Copyright Board will talk about it, once you have registered your right, you can actually enforce it in a different jurisdiction through their court system. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to go for it?
Yeah, probably I could go second.
You want to say something? Please proceed.
Yes, from the Kenya Copyright Board's perspective, and I'll just pick from where my colleague has left on the last part. I think it was asked by Nikron. It also touches on Catherine's question. If you generate work and your work is used in a different territory, how are you protected? You realize what the internet has done is that it has removed borders, such that your work, you having created your work here in Kenya, that work can potentially be used in any other territory across the world. Now, intellectual property comes in, and also remember, intellectual property also protects things like computer softwares and programs and the like. So what happens is that, notice that the law is territorial in nature, including intellectual property laws, and more specifically, copyright law. It is territorial. The law in Kenya relating to copyright is not necessarily at word by word the same law in Uganda. Of course, there are international standards which have been set by World Intellectual Property Organization through, for example, the Berne Convention, which deals with copyright issues. But then when your work as a Kenyan is used in a different territory, and it is protected, of course, you can enforce your rights, just like my colleague has said. But how do you enforce it? You have to enforce that right in the country where the infringement has happened, as long as that country is, for example, a member of the Berne Convention. You can take some time to look at the Berne Convention in relation to that. Of course, we also have internet treaties. Internet treaties are intended to protect copyright works which are actually being used over the internet and to set basic rules of that. But of course, each country is left to legislate on how they want to deal with their copyright in their national legislation. But of course, like I've said, there are basic rules. Now, to Catherine's question, I think that answers Nikron's question. Catherine's question on the place of the citizen journalist. I'll answer this question in relation to intellectual property again, copyright specifically. These journalists, citizen journalists, are creators of copyright. They are creators of intellectual property. So they hold the rights to whatever content they create. Could it be audiovisual? Could it be sound recording? Could it be literary work? They have copyright, or they have protection over those content they use. If it is infringed, then they can take action, whatever it is that they have been infringed. On the flip side, there are also potential infringers of other people's works. So they also need to be on the lookout that they don't use other people's content, including photographs, to generate another, or not claim, to use other people's works without the authority of the owner. So they have a place, but in that place, in that digital place, they are protected, but they also need to be conscious of other people's intellectual property rights. Waithanje's question on the 90% access to internet and mobile smartphones. I'm not sure whether that percentage is correct, but I would assume it's a bit lower. Maybe more people have access to these things.
Actually, the latest Communications Authority report on that puts smartphone penetration at about 35%.
Yeah.
And I think if you add to the fact that in one family, if a member has a smartphone and the others don't, the chances are at least one or two other family members will have access to that phone maybe at least once a day. So we are starting to see the same, you know, the traditional media used to use these circulation numbers. We're starting to see the same sort of metrics when it comes to access to the internet.
Yeah. So to finalize is that you had asked what the government is doing to ensure that these people who don't have access to internet and smart gadgets and computers can access the services. From a Kenya Copyright Board perspective, if you want to use to gain access to the service of Kekobo, like for example, you want to register your work, you don't, for example, you don't have knowledge of how to use the computer, you can pop into the Kenya Copyright Board's office. There are computers, there are ICT guys who will take you through the registration process and actually assist you in registering your copyright work, and you'll get your registration certificate within hours.
This is interesting. Is that across the country?
Across the country? No. Because unfortunately, the Kenya Copyright Board's offices are in Nairobi only.
So najua Nairobi si Kenya.
Yeah, unfortunately, we only...
So I think you need to start thinking about mashinani. I think it's probably collaboration with Huduma Kenya will be a good point to start. Because Huduma centers are across the country, so you can probably think about a collaboration where, because each Huduma center has cyber cafes across the country. Point for you to ponder.
Yeah, certainly. Actually, the conversations are ongoing.
Thank you so much for that. Any last comments on these particular issues from the Film Commission? Because I know we are likely to run out of time in a few minutes.
Thank you. My response will be to the first question on the issue of accessibility to internet and also the services that we offer. So Kenya Film Commission has set up what we are calling the ultra-modern film hubs. So the main objective of this particular facility is to enable filmmakers at the grassroots to have access to equipment and also access to internet just for desktop research. So the ultra-modern film hub has equipment that can do production. It has an ultra-modern sound studio where you can record a song, do voiceovers and Foley sound. We also have machines that can do general desktop research. If you are in the stage of development, you're doing a script writing, those machines have access to not only internet, but high-speed internet. So that is one of the elements we are doing. Alongside the film hubs that we have, we also incorporate capacity building programs, where once we set up this facility to ensure proper utilization, we normally do a one-week crash course on the entire film production. So we teach you how to do a script and how to utilize the softwares associated with them as well. And then also another program we have is county screenings, where we move to every particular county and we do a screening of Kenyan films. So in those particular screenings as well, we're able to sensitize our stakeholders or just the general public on how to utilize some of these facilities, programs, and how to access us better. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So we are coming to the close of our conversation today. What I would now like to do is give each one of my panelists a minute to close off with their closing remarks, and then we take it from there. Let me kick off from my right.
Thank you, Ali. From my side, I would actually say that the digital superhighway has actually come to help the digital economy. It has come with its own challenges as well. However, I would say that the positives are more than the negatives. We have seen situations where, like for example, you recall during the COVID-19 pandemic, I think what we were left with was the internet, especially when there was a lockdown. You couldn't move around, you couldn't go to work, you couldn't, for those who are lawyers, you couldn't go to court. For those who are creatives, who are musicians, you couldn't go to gigs. So you resorted to the internet. So it came in as a savior. On the other side, of course, there are a lot of people who infringed on other people's copyright, unfortunately. So I would say that the internet at the digital superhighway opened up the globe, and now we are a digital village as one, and we can interact more. So it is God-sent. However, in terms of data protection, we put out a lot of our data out there without knowing the repercussions. And again, these repercussions could again be positive or negative. If you are, for example, in the creative industry, you are a musician, you are putting out your content there, and your information and your details, it could work for or against you. Because if somebody, your work is out there, and somebody else wants to use your work or want a license to use your work, if your information is not out there, your data is not out there, then they cannot get a license from you. Your work is likely to be infringed. If your data is out there, people can easily access you, then you are likely to make a lot of money out of it. So it is a delicate balance, but we have policies and we have legislations to support the digital economy in the digital superhighway.
Thank you so much. Double-edged sword here. It works both ways. So let's get our stuff out there. Sir, over to you. Closing remarks.
All right, thank you. First, I'll start by saying that as a government regulator, one, we note that the role of government is actually to facilitate and not hinder. As my colleague has said, the digital superhighway has come with its challenges, and the role of the government, because we have realized that the creative economy, that's the creative goods and the creative services, actually is a very good avenue for wealth creation for a country. We looked at the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development figures. When it came to the growth of the creative goods between 2010 and 2020, it grew, the export of creative goods grew by 100 million. The export of creative services grew by about 500 billion. And due to the digitization, we, as a media council, we have realized that very many things that used to fall under creative goods are quickly moving to creative services because, as my colleague just said, there are no boundaries now. And what we have realized is also that with the digital superhighway, the ability of people to process and analyze data and use this data for other things, whether it's targeted advertising, creating targeted content, or conducting research, has also actually increased. And because of these things, and from a government perspective, our position is that we need to amend our laws, we need to amend our regulations to allow for this increased access to data, but also limit and ensure that that increased access comes with the responsibility. The responsibility has already been created by the Data Protection Act. It gives the principle. It gives the principle. It gives the principles and the rights for the data subject, which I think any government agency should then align their policies to ensure that there is growth.
Thank you so much, guys. Over to you. But
the digital superhighway opens up opportunities to the creatives. So mine is to rally filmmakers or the creatives, wherever they are, to take advantage of this particular infrastructure in terms of trends, in terms of consumption, production, and also just to urge everyone to have that personal initiative to protect their own data. Because when you give your data outside there, no one else will be to blame than yourself. So initiative to protect yourself.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next.
Yes, so I just don't repeat what he said. Yes, it has helped even sustain the film industry, having the digital superhighway and innovation. And also for us as a commission, we have been managed, I think even after COVID, we managed to digitize our services so we can even reach international filmmakers to attract investment into the country. So for us, we have seen the advantages. It has actually helped continue sustain the film industry, which would have died had we not looked for innovation or innovative ways to continue the industry after COVID. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I would like to appreciate my panelists today and appreciate you guys for being here and listening to us and contributing. My last closing remarks will really be that there is probably not been a time in history with so much opportunity and yet so much risk. It's a delicate balance, but what we must do first is ensure that we protect ourselves and we protect the people around us, and not to be cavalier with other people's data. One of the things that I see very common, something as basic as forwarding videos and messages and screenshots on your WhatsApp. Let me tell you, it's going to catch up with you one day. Don't just, I see people do this thing. They forward something on WhatsApp and they said, sent as received. Let me tell you, that statement does not absolve you from responsibility. So be careful. Whatever you are sending, whatever you are forwarding, always very important to verify the authenticity of your forwards, because you forward something and the next thing you know, that same screenshot has been splashed with fake. I'm sure you've all seen it. So let's be circumspect with our own data and other people's data. Let's also ensure that we grab this opportunity with our 10 hands, not just 2 hands, 10 hands. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the ODPCC for giving us this opportunity to converse and interact, because it's very rare to have government agencies that are so open, that are so engaging, and that allow citizens to engage. Asanteni sana, and have a great afternoon.
Let's give them a better clap. Actually, this is the first time the panel in Savo has finished before other panels. The conversation have been to all the rooms, and I have to confess that I had expected that people would probably doze off. But these have been the most engaging panels, and so I thank you. I think I've caught a bit of what he's saying, a bit of this panel, and I've liked the conversation on the film industry. The art and the creatives industry has a lot of opportunity, but also threats. And to see that Kenya is taking advantage of the digital superhighway, I think is quite something. So thank you very much for your panel. We will still want you to report back, Bonali. So let's just wait for everybody else to settle in. I promised that we'll be done by 3:30. I think I'm about to keep my word, right? Lakini makofi kwa nyinyi wote. I'm so grateful to all of you. Thank you very much for your cooperation. I think we've had one of the best participants list. So thank you very much for being very active, being very energetic, and being present, intentionally staying till the end. We also appreciate and recognize our online audience. Thank you very much for being very engaged and contributing. We are still waiting for everybody else to report back, to get back to the main plenary. So what is Twitter saying? I can see MSEA. They are saying all sector players should have a paradigm shift on how we think of data. In conclusion, he noted that data is more like gold. Its value appreciates with time, hence it can be reused and repurposed limitlessly. And I think that also speaks to the last panel where the moderator has said it has a lot of promise, it gives us a lot of promise as well as a lot of threats. Please tweet, do you feel your contribution has not been added? Please tweet, tweeters on hashtag Data Protection KE. We are almost done, and I think it's important that I also highlight more exhibitors so that we are finishing early so that you also get time to go and visit them. There is a copyright board which helps us to copyright what we have created. So it's important to also visit their stand. I was at the NCBA stand, and they told me that they're even hiring new data protections experts, because they want to make sure that the data you give them is safe and is protected. So please make a point. We'll be done in the next 15 minutes. In fact, if everybody would come in, please. If everybody came in, we will be done. We will be done in the next 15 minutes. I promised and I intend to deliver this so that you visit the exhibition and we also get ready for tomorrow. Thank you very much for being an amazing, amazing audience. I'm grateful and I'm happy that I've been your MC for the day. It's been a great honor. Thank you for not getting angry at the bell. Even that is something to be grateful for. So in a few minutes, we will be starting the final, this is a closing session, which will start with the reporting back. We will hear from your panel, we'll hear from the other panels, and then the Deputy Commissioner, tumalize, and then we are done. Sawa sawa. So in a few minutes, we'll be closing.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission (ODPC) was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data,
Jipigie makofi jameni. Asanteni sana, 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 sana. Sasa I can even see the faces are happy. I think CS should come back and see the faces and realize ni vile hamkuwa mmeanza. You had a lot to say. Ni vile hamkuwa mmeanza. Kwa hivyo nashukuru. Naomba tu tukae tafadhali so that we finish. We should be out of here by 3:30 so that we visit the booths, we visit the exhibition. We also get to interact with them and hear what they have to offer. Hata kuna ile nimeona ni kama iko na package na iko branded. So just visit, you might leave with a package. Yeah? But importantly, there's a lot to learn. You can ask them questions. We also have GIZ. GIZ is the only development partner who is present today, and they really, really supported the work that Office of the Data Commissioner is doing, of the Data Protection Commissioner is doing. So they're a great partner who facilitated the continued work of the office. Kwa hivyo, visit their booth as well. Please listen, learn, ask them questions. They're very invested. Yes. Alafu, hizi viti zote, sijui kama tunasema viti vyote, ni vyetu. Kwa hivyo naomba, if there is an empty seat, it's just for a few minutes. If there is an empty seat in front of you, naomba tu kwa unyenyekevu. Kubali tu kusonga mbele. We are just waiting for one moderator, Mr. John. He will tell us why that session imekaa hivyo. But there was also a lot of interest. I got to attend, I got to walk in there for a few minutes and I could tell the kind of interest. So it had Meta, that is Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram. It had Alphabet, it had TikTok, it had Amnesty International, and it also had Strathmore University, I believe representing academia. So I guess that's hence the interest. It had Google, I saw Google on the panel. So you can imagine why, you can now understand why the interest. Kwa sababu kila mtu anataka kujua, we feed you so much, how do you guarantee my data is safe? Yes. So we go to Twitter. Have you tweeted? Do you feel you've not said your point hasn't been captured? We also appreciate those joining us live. Asanteni sana for staying with us. I've seen your messages. I've read them. I can see Hani saying the security companies collecting our personal data as an entry requirement into buildings and offices. How do they secure this information, and are they aware of that they have an obligation to protect our data? And I think we have, I think it's EY showing us they have a very good solution to this. So visit their booth as well, learn about this, and I think all these buildings need to talk to them for a solution on that as well. So there's a lot actually to learn from the booths, but that's a very good point. The other one, we have Kamau Wamegwe saying, it is important that this conversation is starting to take shape. We appreciate it. Catch me at the Sentinel Africa Consultancy booth, your advisor of choice. Na hiyo nimeona, siwaeki kwa line, I'm not exposing them, but I have actually seen a hamper, so you might be lucky. Thank you very much. Is Bwana John here? He's a moderator. Amazing. So now we can go into the reporting back. We had 3 breakout sessions. First, thank you very much for staying on until now from morning. We thank you and we don't take it for granted. Tujipigie makofi tafadhali. So we had a panel talking about the digital superhighway and creative economy, value of personal data and compliance with the data protection regulatory in growth of the digital and creative economy, the government perspective. Bwana Ali Hussein, they were in the Savo room. Mr. Ali? Okay, so we can move to the second panel as we wait for Mr. Ali, but somebody please alert him that we are reporting back. The second panel, we had digital superhighway. We had the infrastructure service providers perspective moderated by Mr. Barak Otieno. Maximum 5 points. Ukienda sana na kukata.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm going to be brief. My name is Barak Otieno from the Kenya ICT Action Network. So our session focused on infrastructure. There were 3 discussants. That is Konza Technopolis, which of course highlighted the national data center that they have recently built, and also the smart city infrastructure that they have built, which is spurring growth of the innovation sector. Some of the issues that were raised in the room were around whether it will be possible to force all government agencies to host their content at Konza, and of course the speaker could not answer because it is only the ministry that can be able to do that. But another speaker alluded to the fact that going forward, all government emails will be hosted at the government data center. The next speaker was ICTA, which gave us a brief on what they have done so far, which includes over 12,000 kilometers of fiber laid to sub-county level across the country. And they indicated that the government is also committed to building another 100,000 kilometers of fiber, which I believe is in the public domain. 58,000 of these will be done by government, 42,000 by the private sector, and I think conversations are underway to make sure that this is done. He also raised the fact that ICTA has provided schools with digital devices, and teachers have been trained. I think we all know the laptops for schools initiative or the tablets. And going forward, the internet connectivity will enable the schools to join the digital superhighway. Last but not least was REREC, a new parastatal that was previously known as Rural Electrification Authority, or REA. Its mandate changed in 2019 to include renewable energy, and one of their goals is to make sure that there is power to the last mile. The discussion appreciated the fact that without power, we cannot be able to have a digital superhighway. So we have a government parastatal that has been put in place to make sure that the national grid is not only extended to the last mile, but also we are using renewable forms of energy that are sustainable and reliable to make sure that every home is connected to the last mile. So of course, some of the questions that came up included how we will ensure that every school is connected to the power grid or has some form of power so that the students or the children can be able to leverage the digital superhighway. And also, one other question that was raised had to do with issues of security around the public Wi-Fi or hotspots that are being deployed around the country, and ICTA responded that it's doing a lot of sensitization to make sure that this is addressed. In brief, that is what the session managed to discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I mean, jameni, makofi mzuri tafadhali. I think I love the stress on the last mile connectivity, but importantly, bridging the digital divide. I think the CS talked about the 100,000 kilometers of fiber, but it's also important to remind ourselves that government alone can't do it. We have to collaborate. It has to be a collaborative effort between the private sector and government. The next one, shown on platform service providers. Perspective. Hey, jameni, Bwana John, your panel has stayed and stayed and stayed. We need to hear what the discussion was about. Karibu sana. But please, key highlights. Karibu sana. Makofi as he comes, tafadhali.
Sing on, test. So my name is John Walubengo. Okay. John Walubengo, wearing the hat of KICTANET, Kenya ICT Action Network. I moderated this session that talked about big tech, basically the platform economy. And in my panel, we had Google. We all know Google, I'm sure. We had Microsoft. We are familiar with their products. We also had a human rights entity called Amnesty International, and we had academia, Strathmore University. So we started off with allowing the speakers to tell us what their different companies are doing around the digital platforms. So Google talked about being able to be compliant. Actually, because of time, I'll merge Google and Microsoft in terms of big tech, what they're doing in this space in terms of complying with the law. So basically, they said that they actually have tools at the user end that allows us to be able to exercise our data rights. So today, for example, you could search for your Google privacy page, and it will be able to tell you what Google knows about you from the day you joined Google. So the places you visited, the posts you made, the likes you did, etc. So those tools are available at our end, and they can also allow you to revoke or to customize some of the things that Google can do to your data. They also explained, both Microsoft and Google, that they work with third parties. So they are a platform. So it's not true that they are in control of all the data. So some data could be downstream with their partners. So even if they were to delete them from their indexes, your data could still be out there in their downstream partners. We also had a very strong intervention from Amnesty International. They gave us a broad perspective, which in summary says that big tech really is not doing enough, and there have been cases where people have lost lives. Case in point, I think 3 weeks ago, there was a Kenyan who was killed in Eldoret, and there was a lot of sort of flack online on these platforms, and conversations that seemed to indicate that was serves him right type of conversation. And this is a space that big tech could assist in terms of moderating those types of discussions. They also gave an example of Ethiopia. A professor was killed after being profiled on Facebook. Unfortunately, Meta was not with us, but that didn't stop Amnesty from talking about their platform. And they said that this professor was profiled and actually killed as he left the university halls. And the funny thing is that he's not even on Facebook. So imagine dying, your death being discussed online and being executed in real time, and you're not even part of that conversation. So clearly, there is more that these platforms could do in terms of making them safer spaces. Also, Microsoft talked about gaming. So that's a new economic area that would allow us to participate. If we are able to generate revenue by providing gaming software, then it's a good thing. But there's also the privacy side of that. Children are vulnerable. How do we know that the data they're sharing online is protected as provided for by the law? In academia, if I may finalize, we had Strathmore talking about the curriculum they're building around this space. They also supported the ODPC in putting together their strategic plan, and they continue to ensure that the privacy agenda is reflected, particularly in the technical disciplines. Because at the end of the day, it's the engineers who are building this software. So if we can get them to buy into the privacy agenda at that stage, then half the job will be done. Thank you.
Makofi kwake. Thank you very much. You know, I'm listening to him saying how Google, I can go to Google and see how much information I've shared with them, and I'm not even sure I'm ready for it. Because, I mean, you use GPS, right? If you're going to a place that you don't know, what do you use? You use GPS, you do. I mean, they have everything, everything. Use Gmail. Oh my God, I'm not even sure I'm ready to see. The final one was looking at the government perspective. Is Ali here? Mr. Ali Hussein? I think in a nutshell, what I was able to catch is on the film industry and the contribution that the digital superhighway has contributed. Majority of them, especially during COVID, would have been rendered jobless. But thanks to the digital superhighway, majority were able to still benefit from their creativity. I think that's the only highlight I was able to catch. In the interest of time, I think I'm going to invite Mr. Oscar to come and close for us. He is a deputy commissioner at the office. Thank you very much. Makofi kwake tafadhali.
2 minutes. Thank you, and I'll try and put it within the time allocated. Mine is just like a closing remarks. We want to give a vote of thanks for our CS. The CS came, graced the occasion. He talked about the data protection and privacy versus access to information, that balancing act, how we need to focus on the same. He also mentioned about data protection and data privacy as a fundamental human right enshrined in the Constitution. So as we continue about our daily activities, just know that it is your right to have your data, private, and should that be infringed, we now know where to go. He also talked about what many other panelists have talked about here, the 100,000 kilometers of superhighway. We really hope that you guys will, in various small ways, we will come in to support the Ministry of ICT and in general, the government of the day in achieving this agenda. He talked about the 25,000 free Wi-Fis. I think it will be a good thing because now, initially when we were young, we used to have those booths where you'd, for those who came up, who grew up in the Mashambani, once in a while you'd know that maybe dad would call on Saturday at 3, so you'd go and wait for that, isn't it? But now with these free Wi-Fis and with these technologies, we now know that even those guys who are mashinani, we can be able to reach them. It's a good thing for the government initiative. Also, he talked about the 1,450 digital hubs. Service providers who are here, I hope we are willing and ready to walk this journey with the ministry. The PS also graced the occasion. He talked about the digitizing of government records. For the first time, we are seeing at least the government also trying to put the foot forward in terms of digitizing its records. Past administrations have seen other government records such as the education records being digitized with the coming in of NEMIS and all that. I think there was something to do with the lands, but I'm sure, and with the leadership of the current PS and the CS, by the time 4 or 5 years down the line, almost all government organizations are going to be digitized. And then there's a lot of space now for you as service providers in this. We were also graced by the Data Commissioner, Madam Kasait. She talked about the office. Part of it, she mentioned about the successes that the office have had. Just to mention but a few, there are those penalty notices. Just to mention, enforcement is now real. We are walking down the compliance journey, but enforcement is real. Penalty notices are there. Enforcement notices are there. We have been soft, but I think going forward with this awareness, there will be no more room for going soft. It will be both compliance, preaching compliance, and for those who don't comply, enforcement measures shall be taken unto you as per the law. We have done a lot of determinations, mentioning compliance. There are guidance notes in various sectors. We have the agriculture, the fintech, we have the financial services, education, and health sector. We'll be calling upon various players to assist us in developing of these guidelines. And key amongst the successes that the Data Commissioner mentioned is collaborations. It is through these collaborations that we have had this successful event. It is through the same collaborations that you have also come, and we really want to partner with you moving forward. So I take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, the German Corporation. We've worked with you through so many other fronts. This is the GIZ. We thank all the partners who came through for this particular data privacy conference. We thank Safaricom, just to mention but a few, Airtel. We also had the Amnesty International. Thank you so much. The Information Systems Audit and Control Association, Sentinel Africa, Strathmore, and many, many more. Yeah. So for the panelists, we also say thank you so much. I'm sure each and every moderator came and gave a vote of thanks on behalf of the panelists. I wouldn't want to go back and reiterate what they said. Last but not least, we want to also inform you that we are going to have another, like a roundup session tomorrow. For those who will not be able to join us, kindly join us online. It will be at the same venue. It is, since we are going to be graced by His Excellency, it will be an invitation only exercise for tomorrow. So please, there is still time. Talk to us who are here. The organizers, they'll give you the links. You can get invited for these. And lastly, ya mwisho kabisa, and we have booths for various partners. Behind there, you can check out. I can see some few booths that were empty. If you feel like you want to showcase your things for just that one day tomorrow, we can talk to the organizers, and of course, definitely, I think it was free. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Asante sana. And okay.
He's actually talked in under 3 minutes. And he's donated the last one for me to say, thank you very much, Asanteni sana, and God bless you. Please visit the booths, learn from them, and also ask questions or contribute anything you have. Siku yetu imeishia hapo. If you leave at will. If you want to stay, ni sawa. Ukitaka kuenda, ni sawa. Tuonane kesho, majaliwa. Asanteni, and God bless you. The conversation goes on online. #DataProtectionKE. Asanteni sana.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission ODPC was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanisms to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate the Data Privacy Day on the 27th January 2023 from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, ODPC, was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 27th of January from 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in Digitally Transformed Economy.
Office of the Data Protection Commissioner ODPC was established under the Data Protection Act 2019. The office's key mandate includes regulating the processing of personal data, ensuring the processing of personal data is guided by the principles set out in the Act, protecting the privacy of individuals, establishing the legal and institutional mechanism to protect personal data, and providing data subjects with rights and remedies to protect their personal data. Join the ODPC as we commemorate Data Privacy Day on the 26th and 27th of January 2023, starting 8 a.m. at the Kenyatta International Convention Center under the theme Promoting Data Protection in a Digitally Transformed Economy. This event will be aired live on KBC Channel 1 on 27th January from 8 a.m.
The Office of the Data Protection Commission, ODPC, was established under the